I have always loved the sound of a busy house, the clinking of silverware, the laughter of grandchildren running down the hall, the sound of a cork popping from a bottle. But silence is heavy. It sits on your chest like a stone. My name is Margaret. I'm 79 years old, and this Christmas Eve, the silence in my house was deafening. I had started preparing 3 days ago. My arthritis was flaring up, making my knuckles swollen and angry, but I ignored the pain. I peeled 5 pounds of potatoes because my son Robert loves my mashed potatoes. I baked 3 apple pies because my daughter Clara says store-bought ones taste like cardboard. I polished the mahogany dining table until I could see my own wrinkled face in the wood. I set 5 places. 1 for me, 2 for Robert and his wife, 2 for Clara and her husband. "We'll be there by 7, Mom," Clara had texted me yesterday. "Don't stress." At 6:30 p.m., I put on my best red velvet dress. It was a little loose now. I've lost weight since my husband Henry passed away 2 years ago, but I pinned it with his favorite brooch. 7 p.m. came. The snow was falling softly outside, covering the world in white. 7:30 p.m. passed. The roast beef was perfectly medium rare, sitting on the counter, slowly losing its heat. At 7:45 p.m., the phone finally rang. I rushed to it, stumbling a little. "Clara?" I answered, breathless. "Are you close? The roads must be bad." "Hi, Mom." Clara's voice sounded distant. There was music in the background, loud music. "Listen, there's been a change of plans. Rob and we decided to go to the Bahamas this year. Last-minute thing. We're actually at the airport right now." My hand gripped the phone. "The Bahamas? But the dinner? The pies?" "Oh, Mom, don't be dramatic," she sighed. "It's just dinner. Put it in the freezer. We'll come see you in January or February. You know how stressful the holidays are for us. We needed a break." "I understand," I whispered, though I didn't. "Where is Robert? Is he still coming?" "No, Rob went with his in-laws to Aspen. Didn't he call you?" "Oh well, gotta run, Mom. Flight is boarding. Merry Christmas." The line went dead. "Merry Christmas," I said to the dial tone. I didn't cry immediately. I think I was too shocked. I walked back to the dining room. The candles were burning down, dripping wax onto the lace tablecloth I had hand-stitched 40 years ago. 5 empty plates. 5 empty chairs. I sat at the head of the table. I looked at the food that would go to waste. I looked at the tree, surrounded by presents I had wrapped with arthritic hands, presents that no one would open tonight. "Well, Henry," I said, looking at the empty chair opposite me, "it looks like it's just us again." I stood up and blew out the candles. The room went gray. I scraped the roast beef into a Tupperware container, though I had no appetite. I turned off the Christmas tree lights. By 9 p.m., the house was dark, cold, and quiet. I sat in my rocking chair by the window, watching the blizzard rage outside. I felt small. I felt invisible. I wondered, honestly, if I simply disappeared tonight, how long it would take for anyone to notice. January? February? That's when I heard it. Scratch. Scratch. A soft, desperate sound at the front door. I froze. We live out in the country. We don't get carolers. We don't get neighbors dropping by. Whine. A high-pitched, trembling sound. It wasn't human. I grabbed my cane and walked to the door. "Who is there?" No answer. Just the scratching. Faster now. Panic-stricken. I unlocked the deadbolt and pulled the heavy door open. The wind hit me instantly, biting through my velvet dress. I looked out. At first, I saw nothing but snow. Then I looked down. There, curled into a tight ball on my welcome mat, was a dog. Not a puppy, but an old dog. A golden retriever with a face white with age. He was shivering so violently that his bones seemed to rattle against the floorboards. He was thin, ribs showing through wet, matted fur. He wore no collar. He looked up at me. His eyes were cloudy with cataracts, but they held a look I recognized. It was the same look I had seen in the mirror 10 minutes ago. Total abandonment. He didn't bark. He just let out a soft sigh and laid his head on my cold shoe. I didn't think about the mud. I didn't think about my clean floors. "Oh, you poor old soul," I whispered, tears finally spilling over. "They forgot you too, didn't they?" I bent down, ignoring the pain in my knees, and scooped him up into my arms. He was heavy, wet, and smelled of wet wool, but he leaned into me as if I were the only source of heat in the universe. I carried him inside and kicked the door shut against the cold. I didn't know it yet, but the family I had been waiting for all night had finally arrived. He just had 4 legs instead of 2. I brought him into the kitchen. He was shaking so hard his claws clicked against the linoleum like castanets. I grabbed the expensive towels, the Egyptian cotton ones Clara had given me years ago and told me to save for guests, and began to rub him dry. He didn't pull away. He leaned into my hands, letting out a low groan of relief as the warmth returned to his old bones. "You're hungry, aren't you?" I asked. He looked at the counter, at the roast beef I was about to put away. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the finest china plate, the Wedgwood with the gold rim. I cut a slice of the prime rib, the piece I had saved for Robert, but I paused. I knew a starving belly couldn't handle rich fat. I carefully trimmed the meat into small, lean bites. I rinsed off the heavy gravy and mixed the beef with a scoop of plain mashed potatoes to be gentle on his stomach. I placed the plate on the floor. "Merry Christmas," I whispered. He ate with a dignity I hadn't expected. He didn't wolf it down. He ate slowly, savoring every bite, looking up at me between chews as if to say, "Is this really for me?" "It is," I said, sitting on the floor next to him, ignoring the creak in my hips. "It's all for you. You're the only one who showed up." That night, he didn't want to sleep in the laundry room. He followed me up the stairs, his nails clicking softly. When I got into bed, he hesitated, resting his chin on the mattress. "Come on, then," I patted the quilt. He hopped up, a struggle for his old legs, and curled into a ball against my back. For the first time in 2 years, the bed didn't feel vast and empty. It felt warm. I fell asleep to the sound of his steady breathing, a lullaby that chased away the silence. I named him Gabriel because he showed up on Christmas night, like a messenger. The next few weeks were a revelation. My arthritis, which usually crippled me in January, seemed to ease. Why? Because I had to get up. I had to let Gabriel out. I had to fill his bowl. I wasn't just an old woman waiting to die anymore. I was needed. Gabriel wasn't a normal dog. He was watchful. He would follow me from room to room. If I sat down inside, he would immediately rest his head on my knee. If I forgot my blood pressure medication on the counter, he would sit by the bottle and whine until I noticed. It was as if he knew he had a job to do. But peace, as I learned, triggers those who thrive on chaos. In mid-February, Clara finally came to visit. She didn't call first. She just burst in, tanned from her trip to the Bahamas, bringing a cold gust of air and criticism with her. "Mom," she yelled from the hallway, "it smells like wet animal in here." Gabriel was lying by the fire. He stood up slowly and let out a low, protective woof. Clara walked into the living room and stopped dead. She looked at Gabriel, then at me. "Mom," she said, her voice dripping with that condescending tone children use when they think their parents have lost their minds. "That's a dog?" Clara laughed, a sharp, unkind sound. "Mom, be serious. You can barely take care of yourself. You can't handle a dog, especially not that old thing. He looks like a walking rug." Gabriel didn't growl, but he moved closer to me, pressing his body against my legs. "He is company, Clara," I said firmly, "which is more than I can say for you." Clara rolled her eyes. Look, we need to talk. Rob and I have been discussing the living arrangements. This house is too big. The stairs are dangerous. We found a lovely assisted living facility in the city. It's called Sunset Meadows. My heart went cold. I am not going to a home. It's for your own good, Clara insisted. You're almost 80. What happens if you fall? What happens if you have an episode? And besides, Sunset Meadows doesn't allow pets, so we'll have to take this dog to the shelter. It's probably for the best. He looks sick anyway. She reached out to grab Gabriel's collar. Gabriel snapped. He didn't bite her, he just snapped the air, a warning click of teeth, and let out a guttural growl that vibrated through the floorboards. Clara jumped back, clutching her pearls. "It's vicious! Mom, did you see that? It tried to bite me." "He told you to back off," I said, putting my hand on Gabriel's head. "And I agree with him." "You are choosing a stray animal over your own daughter?" Clara shrieked. "I am choosing the one who was here on Christmas," I said, my voice shaking with a rage I hadn't felt in years. "Get out, Clara. Gabriel stays, and so do I." Clara stormed out, slamming the door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. "You're going to regret this, Mom. When you get sick, don't call me." I looked down at Gabriel. He was looking up at me, his tail giving a slow, steady thump against the floor. "We don't need them," I told him. But Clara was right about one thing. I was getting older, and that night as I climbed the stairs, I felt a tightness in my chest, a flutter. I ignored it. I had Gabriel to walk in the morning. I didn't know that the flutter was a ticking clock, and I didn't know that the only thing standing between me and death wasn't a doctor or my children, it was the dog they wanted to destroy. 3 days after Clara's visit, the storm returned. Not snow this time, but freezing rain that coated the world in a sheet of ice. The power lines outside hummed and flickered. It was 2 a.m. when the flutter in my chest turned into a sledgehammer. I had gone downstairs to get a glass of water. Gabriel, as always, was right at my heels. I remember setting the glass on the counter. I remember taking a sip. Then the world tilted. A pain, sharper than anything I had ever felt, like a hot iron rod being driven through my sternum, hit me. My left arm went numb. My vision blurred into gray static. I tried to grab the counter, but my hand wouldn't work. I fell. I hit the linoleum floor hard. My hip cracked against the cabinets. The glass of water shattered, sending shards everywhere. I tried to scream, but only a wheeze came out. I couldn't breathe. It felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest. This is it, I thought, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly in the dark. I am going to die on the kitchen floor. Clara was right. The phone was on the wall, 5 feet above me, a million miles away. My medical alert necklace, the one Clara insisted I get, was upstairs on my nightstand because I was too stubborn to wear it to bed. I was completely cut off. Then I felt a wet nose on my cheek. "Gabriel," I whispered, the word barely a breath. He was whining, pacing around me, licking the tears that leaked from my eyes. He nudged my hand with his nose, trying to get me to stand up. I can't get up, boy." He seemed to understand. He stopped pacing. He looked at me, then he looked up. On the counter, next to the sink, was the landline handset. I had left it off the wall hook earlier. It was sitting right on the edge. "Phone," I gasped, pointing a shaking finger. "Gabriel, phone." It was an impossible request. Gabriel was an old dog. His back legs were stiff with arthritis. He struggled just to climb the stairs. Jumping onto a countertop was a feat for a puppy, not a senior dog with bad hips. He looked at the counter. It was 3 feet high. He looked back at me. He whimpered. Then I saw a change in his eyes. The cloudy look vanished. A fierce, primal determination took over. He looked up. The curly cord of the landline was dangling over the edge of the counter, swaying slightly, just out of reach. Gabriel stood on his hind legs. He groaned with the effort, his claws scratching against the cabinet doors as he tried to stretch his old spine. He couldn't jump, his hips were too weak, but he could reach. He snapped his jaws, once, twice. On the third try, his teeth caught the plastic cord. He didn't let go. He dropped back down to all fours, pulling with all his weight. Crash! The phone unit slid across the granite and smashed onto the floor next to my head. The receiver popped off. He didn't stop to rest. He nudged the phone receiver with his nose. It slid across the granite and fell off the edge. It dangled by its cord, swaying just inches from my face. I grabbed it. My fingers felt like sausages, but I managed to hit the speed dial button for 911. 911? What is your emergency? Heart, I whispered. Attack. Address is... I gave the address before the darkness finally swallowed me. The last thing I felt was Gabriel jumping down from the counter, landing awkwardly, limping, and curling up against my chest, his heartbeat thumping against mine, keeping me anchored to this world. I woke up to bright lights and the beep of monitors. I was in a hospital room. Tubes in my nose, an IV in my arm. A nurse was adjusting my blanket. She saw my eyes open and smiled. "Welcome back, Margaret," she said softly. "You gave us quite a scare, a massive myocardial infarction. If you had arrived 10 minutes later, well, we wouldn't be having this conversation." I tried to speak. My throat was dry. "Gabriel?" The nurse looked confused. "Your son?" "He's in the waiting room. He flew in from Aspen." "No," I rasped. "My dog. Where is my dog?" The nurse's face softened. "Oh, the golden retriever. The paramedics told us about him. They said when they broke down the door, he was standing over you, barking at them. They couldn't get near you until they promised they were there to help. He wouldn't leave your side." "Where is he?" I demanded, trying to sit up. "Animal control took him," she said gently. "Standard procedure when a patient is incapacitated and no family is present." Animal control? Panic surged through me, triggering the monitor to beep faster. "Call them! You have to call them! He's old. He can't be in a cage." Just then, the door opened. Clara walked in, followed by Robert. They both looked guilty, tired, and scared. "Mom!" Clara rushed to the bed. "Oh my God, we were so worried. The hospital called us. I told you living alone was dangerous." "Where's the dog, Clara?" I asked, my voice cold steel. Clara paused. She looked at Robert. "Mom, focus on your health," Robert said, stepping forward. "We handled it. The shelter said Look, he's an old dog, Mom. He has hip issues. And now with you recovering, we authorize them to..." He stopped. He couldn't say the word. "To what?" I asked, my blood turning to ice. "To put him down," Clara finished, tears in her eyes, but her voice practical. "Mom, it's the kindest thing. You're going to Sunset Meadows now. You can't care for him, and nobody adopts senior dogs. We were just saving him from suffering in a cage." I looked at my children, the children I had raised, the children who had abandoned me on Christmas, and now the children who had signed the death warrant of the creature who saved my life. I ripped the IV tape from my hand. "Mom, what are you doing?" Clara shrieked. "Get me a wheelchair," I commanded. "Now." "You can't leave. You just had a heart attack." "I said now," I screamed, a sound so primal it made the nurse jump. "If you don't get me a wheelchair, I will crawl out of here. Take me to the shelter. If you killed my dog, I will never speak to either of you again as long as I live." They saw the look in my eyes. It was the same look Gabriel had when he jumped on the counter. Pure, unstoppable will. Robert ran to get a wheelchair. Robert drove like a madman. I think he was terrified, not of me dying, but of me living long enough to write him out of the will. We arrived at the county animal shelter at 4:45 p.m. They closed at 5. I didn't wait for Robert to open my door. I pushed it open and tried to stand. My legs were weak, trembling like leaves in the wind, but adrenaline is a powerful drug. Robert grabbed a wheelchair from the trunk and practically shoved me into it. We burst into the lobby. It smelled of bleach and sadness. "Gabriel," I said to the girl at the front desk. "Golden retriever. Brought in this morning. Owner surrender." The girl typed slowly. Too slowly. Let me check. We had a few surrenders today. Name?" "Vance," Robert said, panting. "Robert Vance. I signed the paperwork." The girl's face fell. She looked at the screen, then at me. "Oh," she whispered. "That one. The senior. Where is he?" I asked, gripping the armrests until my knuckles turned white. "He's in the back," she said softly. "The vet is with him now. You might be too late. The paperwork marked emergency surrender. The owners signed an affidavit claiming the dog mauled a family member this morning and is rabid. Protocol for aggressive dogs is immediate termination." "Mauled?" I screamed, realizing the depth of their betrayal. "He didn't maul anyone. He saved my life." "I'm going back there," I said, spinning the wheels of the chair. "Ma'am, you can't go back there," she tried to say. I didn't listen. I rolled through the double doors marked "Authorized Personnel Only." I saw cages, dozens of them, barking dogs, crying puppies, and at the end of the hall, a metal table. A vet in a green scrub top was filling a syringe. On the table, lying flat and defeated, was Gabriel. He looked so small. His eyes were closed. He had given up. "Stop!" I yelled. The vet jumped. He almost dropped the needle. "Don't you touch him!" I cried, trying to stand up from the wheelchair. "That is my dog!" Gabriel's ears twitched. He lifted his head. He opened those cloudy eyes. When he saw me, he didn't bark. He let out a sound that broke me in two, a soft, whimpering howl of pure relief. He tried to wag his tail, thumping it weakly against the cold metal table. I reached him. I buried my face in his neck, smelling the shelter stink on him, weeping uncontrollably. "I'm here," I sobbed. "I'm here, Gabriel. I didn't leave you. I would never leave you." Robert and Clara stood in the doorway, watching. Clara looked uncomfortable. Robert looked ashamed. We thought it was for the best, Mom," Clara muttered. I turned the wheelchair slowly to face them. I wiped my tears. "For the best?" I asked, my voice calm now. "For whose best? Mine or yours?" "You can't take care of him, Mom," Robert pleaded. "You just had a heart attack. You need to focus on recovery. Sunset Meadows is waiting." "I am not going to Sunset Meadows," I said, "and I am not getting rid of Gabriel." "But Mom, the doctor said—" "The doctors saved my heart, but this dog is the reason it's beating. And you two almost broke it." I looked at the vet. "Is he free to go?" "If you pay the reclamation fee," the vet nodded, looking relieved he didn't have to use the syringe. "Put it on my card," I told Robert. "Consider it my early birthday present, since you missed Christmas." We left the shelter. Gabriel walked slowly beside my wheelchair, pressing his side against my leg with every step. He knew. He knew we had both walked out of death row. Another Christmas Eve. The house is not silent this year. The fire is crackling. Bing Crosby is singing about White Christmas on the radio. I am in the kitchen, peeling potatoes. My hands still ache, but I don't mind. Gabriel is lying on the rug by the stove, chewing on a new squeaky toy shaped like a reindeer.
He moves a little slower now. We both do. But his tail hasn't stopped wagging since we brought him home. The doorbell rings. It's not Clara. It's not Robert. I haven't spoken to them since that day at the shelter. I blocked their numbers, I changed the locks, I hired a lovely local boy to mow the lawn, and a visiting nurse to check my blood pressure twice a week. I realized I didn't need children who only visited when they wanted to sell my house. I needed peace. I opened the door. It's the mailman, Dave, and his wife, Susan, and the nurse from the hospital who took care of me, Sarah. They are holding pies and wine. "Merry Christmas, Margaret," Sarah beams. "We didn't want you to be alone." "I'm never alone," I smile, looking down at Gabriel, who has trotted to the door to greet them with a happy woof. We sit at the table. I set it for 5 again. Me, Dave, Susan, Sarah, and a plate on the floor right next to me filled with prime rib. I look around the table at my new family, a family chosen not by blood, but by kindness. I raise my glass. "To the ones who show up," I say. "To the ones who show up," they echo. Gabriel looks up from his roast beef. He licks gravy off his nose and rests his head on my slipper. I reach down and scratch him behind the ears, right in his favorite spot. My heart beats strong and steady. I finally found the true meaning of Christmas. It wasn't in the gifts or the perfect turkey or the family obligations. It was in the cold, wet nose of an unwanted dog who taught me that even when the world throws you away, you are still worth saving. My own family tried to throw me away in a nursing home and kill the only creature who ever truly protected me. I chose the dog, and I have never been happier. But looking back, I wonder, was I too hard on them? Did they deserve to be cut out of my life completely, or should I have given them a second chance? Honestly, every time I look at Gabriel, I know I made the right choice. But I want to hear from you. If you had to choose between a toxic family member and a loyal pet, who would you pick? Tell me in the comments. And if this story warmed your heart, please like and subscribe. Merry Christmas to you and your fur babies.